in STEM fields and breaking down gender stereotypes in general that exist in tech. So, with this context, I want to welcome our special guest today, Chaya Vaidyanathan, who is the CEO of BCT Digital, which is a digital transformation company delivering solutions in fintech, regtech, and clean tech. She has over 2 decades of experience in tech and one of the very few women leaders in the banking and tech sector in India, both of whom have been heavily dominated by men over so many years in India. Prior to starting and joining BCT Digital, she was associated with Accenture, HCL, and Stanchart. She has led the team that was first in India to develop a tech-enabled early warning system called RT360 product suite for detecting potential non-performing assets, NPAs. You must have read that NPAs are such a big problem in our country. She was one of the pioneers in that space, and she created a global acceptance for a made in India product back then. Under her current leadership at BCT Digital, she has successfully diversified into clean tech segment, where the company's ESG products help organizations stay compliant. You must have read the recent SEBI compliance changes for ESG reporting. So she sort of takes care of that as well. She is the alumni of the prestigious Cornell University and a CFA charter holder. She also serves as independent director on the boards of PwC Global, UTI Asset Management, and Indigrid. We are extremely privileged to have you with us, uh, Jaya, and I think we all stand to gain so much from you and left inspired by you. So I'm going to hand over to Sarthak to formally welcome you and take forward the proceedings. Over to you, Sarthak.
Thank you, Karthik. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Karthik, for introducing Jaya Ji in such a nice and eloquent manner. It's always wonderful. And as the leader for IMA and as our leader, I think you're doing a fantastic job yourself. So not to take more of the audience's time, let us start with this session, which everyone has been waiting for. So Jaya Ji, let's deep dive into the session immediately that as the topic says, what is the role of women in tech leadership? But just in general, and as Karthik was mentioning that it's always been, it's not easy for women, to have, to be in a leadership position, let alone be anything. Could be tech, could be HR, could be health, could be anywhere, It's always been difficult, primarily being, if I have to put it as that, first of all, family is always seen as a responsibility for a woman to take care of, giving birth, which becomes a priority, and household becomes a priority. So there's always that kind of a gap which a woman has to face all her life, and which probably puts her on a back step. But with everything coming into with today's world, with equal amount of companies giving fatherly leave to a motherly leave, like when anybody gets pregnant, paternity and maternity are the same amount of leaves. It's becoming equivalent in the West, and very sure that India will also catch up very soon with it. Just in a general, a very short, where do you think that women as leaders, not totally tech, what is your thought of women as leaders?
See, I think leadership is regardless of gender. It's more what you work towards. It's a quality of that you kind of develop at a younger age, and it's not pertinent to gender. I think there are things like you mentioned that hold back women from being an active part of the leadership, not just in India but also in other parts of the world. So if you look at it, the leadership traits, there are some things that women are absolutely great at. So I would say play to your strengths. And there are some things that, both men and women think differently in a lot of ways. And it's like playing to your strengths. I think that's what is most important. Let me give you examples. Now, when you look at leadership traits as such, empathy, the world has moved from dominant leadership to an empathy-based leadership. And now, if you look at it, women are naturally good at it. If you look at, they're saying work from the middle, work with people rather than work from the top. So again, that's something women are naturally very good at. Multiplexing is something people say, go strongly for. And that is something women are naturally good at. There are things that women could work more in terms of the leadership. This is more based on survey results. Obviously, there would be differences in terms of individual traits, but things like risk avoidance is something that people find women are they do it a little bit more, or they don't take calculated risks as much as men. They don't kind of like network as much as men. They have an inherent dislike of hearing no's. And in a leadership, you hear more no's along the way than you hear yeses. It's not an easy path, which is why it's hard. So, the ability to kind of look at a no and smile and come back and work on why that's, looking at it as a stepping stone to say, how do I convert that no to an yes, is a way of looking at the problem, rather than kind of saying, oh no, how will I go back when they said no? Lack of confidence. Women also have something, the survey says globally, that's something called, a little bit of an imposter syndrome, in a sense that even when they get to like middle management to top layer, they often ask themselves apparently the question, why is that, am I the right person to be in this job? So questioning yourself a lot more, and that is something that they'll need to work more on. Now, these are general traits that we're talking about. But when you look at it, I think it's more about, like you mentioned, the biological clock works in tandem with the career clock. And that's not going to go away, right? And that's something that's an inherent thing. So how do you kind of tap that time that you have and kind of work on yourself? And technology, coming to technology, it's a beautiful place to actually not step away from the workforce, but work on alternative training when you have other priorities. For instance, let's say that you are taking a break for caregiving reasons, whether it's male or female. I think it's more to do with how are you retraining yourself when you have time? Are you getting completely away from the workforce? Are you working on developing skills that are going to kind of put you in the next career growth projection, rather than kind of like completely shutting away from the workforce, in which case it gets difficult to come back? So I'll stop here, but I think it's more a combination of personality traits that you work on from a leadership perspective, combined with technical skills and combined with domain skills. That's the one that's going to propel you to the leadership. Obviously, you have other factors that have improved a long way since maybe people like us when we came to the workforce, right? There is regulatory changes. There's this concept of paternity leave wasn't there when I was there. When I was in the US, my maternity leave was kind of 6 weeks. So things have, from a regulatory perspective, from an understanding perspective, from government stepping in to regulatory changes, they've all happened, but we still have miles to go before we sleep.
So, yeah, exactly right. I mean, just to sum it up, that what Jayaji has suggested to everyone is that it's not that males are born with any inherent trait that they will become better leaders, or that it's a given thing. As she's pointed out, that probably men have a more risk-taking capacity, and they want to put themselves out there. They want to, as she said, that to achieve this, if you have to forego something, it's more of an attitude thing. Yeah, I want to be the leader. I want to take that responsibility. Even if I make a mistake, as she's saying, ki strategy aapki galat bhi ho, then also you are there to back yourself up. Don't put yourself in a corner, and don't feel ki galti ho gayi, so it's done something wrong. In India, we have had presidents, prime minister, women leaders, Indira Gandhi. We still have our finance minister, Mrs. Sita Raman, Smriti Irani. There are so many leaders within the midst of us. So it just tells you, that as women who are listening to us, that, you have to back yourself up. You have to give yourself the confidence that I can equally do the role as good as a man would, or as good as someone else would. I need to have that domain skills, domain knowledge. I need to be a better risk taker, and I need to accept failure if it comes my way. Those are the 3 4 things which I have understood what Jayaji is saying, ki you really need to have that to become better leaders, or to become leaders of tomorrow. Unless you keep on failing that, yes, no, a man can say I will, मैं no क्यों सुनूं, या मुझे ही no बोला जाता है, men को no नहीं बोला जाता. You'll have to go beyond such reasons, and as inherent leaders, you'll have to take everything in stride. Failure is a part of the job. Learning to listening from your superiors, and taking that knowledge and then doing better, that is also part of the job. If you keep doing those jobs, you will definitely become a better leader. So coming into the second aspect, where does technology come into play for women? And like, technology is all for everyone that's listening. Technology is not only Word or Excel or utilizing a computer. Technology is not hi-fi things such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, or technology. In a brief nutshell, Jayaji, what do you feel is how women and technology are related together? How do women take use of technology today in today's scenario to become better leaders, and what does technology can help them easily accelerate their careers and can help them becoming a better person, a better leader, or a better at everything that they do?
See, I think the world has come to a place where technology is not just an enabler, but it's an all-pervasive thing in our lives. So we can't live without technology in our day-to-day way unless you're in some cave somewhere in the middle of nowhere, right? That's kind of connects you to the world. So I think that technology has kind of looked at us in multiple ways. One is you can learn wherever you are. I think that provides an input. It's a great leveling field in terms of just learning. I'll come to advanced skills and leadership, but I think it's more talking about, let's say you were talking about anecdotes of, we're talking about life situations where you go on maternity leave, where you kind of have to take a few years off for whatever reasons, things like that. I think technology is the biggest tutor. Nowadays, you have open courseware everywhere. You can access from MIT courseware to kind of looking at, a lot of online platforms providing you that great leveling field. What you need, you have learning at your fingertips. It's about how you kind of use that to learn, be it something on how to set up an online business. There are plenty of YouTube videos that take you through the legal implications of setting up a business, to kind of looking at how do you do it. So everything there is an how to, and an online technology-led platform that teaches you how to do things. So it's not just about advanced learning. It's about how do you even become an entrepreneur. It's out there. If you talk about, I want to learn advanced courseware to kind of, you can even become a lawyer in certain areas by getting onto online platforms. How to file for a patent. I have this learning. Pretty much everything, the world is at your fingertips simply because you enable use of technology. And then take it to being an entrepreneur, figuring out what's the marketing platform, how do you set it up. All of that technology is a great leveler. So you don't have to kind of be at the working field to be better in your next course of your journey. You can chart your own roadmap simply because you use technology well for learning. And I would say one thing, the minute it's one of my key mantras in life has been that the day you stop learning is the day you stop living, because life is a continuous journey. Just to give you an example, just yesterday, I wrote a 4-hour exam. And this is something that was part of my learning because I wanted to learn certain new practices. And I thought the best way to do is just not read, because when I read, I actually think that I know the subject very well. But when you actually take an exam, which is quantified, proctor oriented, you actually test your learning. And there is no better way to kind of test that learning, even, unless you actually go through the rigor of a learning program. So I would say continuously learn. Now, when it comes to what is that's a great leveler, again, there are newer and newer things, and you need to keep up to date. In fact, there was, I was at this NASCOM event just at, maybe about 10 days ago. And one of the things that people brought from a very large IT services company is that when people were brought on at the trainee level, the freshers batch were recruited, the kids didn't want to, they refused to go through training and advanced learning. They said, I've already done 4 years of learning from an engineering college, and I don't want to learn new things. That was a shocker, because that's when you actually start learning, and life is a, you can't even think of a leadership role unless you're continuously learning and getting adept with things. The more the new things come, the more you've got to learn.
Jay, just hear that. What do you think is should women be focusing on in the current scenario? Rather than the normal. I mean, everybody should keep adapting and keep learning. I agree to that. Like if I am in the foot litter industry, I need to constantly learn and keep myself updated. But probably in a nutshell, if women have to do something, start something, are there some courses that you would suggest, some fields that are doing better than the other one, some fields that are easily acceptable for women, which they can grasp faster than probably men would, or something that can help them accelerate their learning in technology, some anything?
I'm actually worried by the question, because I don't think you should bring gender bias to learning. Because learning is not something that a woman learns or a man learns. We all learn.
Yeah,
So
gender
let's
agnostic.
bring in the gender lens onto learning, which is my first thing. Because what applies to a woman applies to a man as far as learning goes. How you deploy those opportunities to kind of say things or put your hand up, that there is a difference. So the question probably to me, that is more kind of important is it's not on the learning aspect, but on the application. Let's say that you've actually gone through a great course from MIT on artificial or generative AI or transformative AI, you've gone through the course. How do you kind of apply that to your job? Or kind of like, how do you seek those opportunities if you're a woman versus a man? That is something that if you ask that question, I think I have the answer to that is put your hand up more often, which is something women don't do that often. Because they ask that I've learned the skill. How do I take that and ask for those opportunities? Demand your right in the corporate world. And that's the only way to get to the right leadership. One, get out of your comfort zone, go for those new courses or whatever is happening. This is no secret. Deep tech, if you ask about technology, everybody knows that the way forward is, looking at artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, going a little beyond. You can't do that online learning as much, but applications of quantum learning. So these are no secrets. People would tell you blockchain, AI, throw in the buzzwords, and those are the things you should be learning. That's not a secret. But it's more about once you've learned, how do you apply it to it? So let's say you've learned all these courses and you go back to your workforce and you ask your manager, you ask for, or those opportunities to be part of the team that does cutting edge technology. If that's an opportunity, either outside your comfort zone, or it demands different working hours, or it demands going on site on an opportunity to kind of do that learning or delivering that learning, that is something that you have to tap for. And that is something once you put your hand up, both at work and at home. And the reason I'm saying at home is because you need the support structure to support your upward mobility. That has to come from the infrastructure, the network at home, and the explanation and the heart-to-heart conversation you have at home to say that this is going to make a difference to our lives if I did this. So I would apply it in that lens, Sarthak, rather than saying course A is going to get you to a leadership, or course B is going to get you something, because that learning is gender neutral.
Okay, very nice. Thank you for those inputs. So generally, again, summing it up, that constant learning and a role of family support is required while you are at home or while you are working. With the family support, it's the hunger and the attitude that you possess. Only then you can become a leader. Anyone can become a leader. It's not. I don't think so that there will be any role in the world, and from a prime minister to a president to a CEO to a CEO, which actually says that, this can only be done by men and not by women. Everything is achievable if you put your heart and soul and mind to it. Going on that mindset and knowing that that's a prerequisite, that it's a must. किसी को भी ऊंचाइयां छूनी है तो ये आपके लिए बहुत जरूरी है irrespective of gender, as Jayaji is saying, that these inherent capabilities and these inherent एटीट्यूड जो आपको पोजेस करना है एक लीडर बनने के लिए, चाहे वो टेक्नोलॉजी हो, चाहे वो हेल्थ हो, चाहे वो एचआर हो, चाहे वो फाइनेंस हो, इट इज अ मस्ट। आप जो चीज में एक्सेल करना चाहते हैं, अगर ये वाली चीजें आपने इनहेरेंटली अपने अंदर नहीं डाली, तो वो लीडर बनने से आप चूक जाएंगे। कमिंग टू दैट नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, दैट when you're on that road, the journey is never going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be full of challenges. It's going to be full of thorns along the path. बहुत कांटे होंगे आपके रास्ते में. What do you think, Jayaji, is that what should the journey be like? What can be done to smoothen the journey? And how do you effectively, do that journey as quickly or as seamlessly as possible?
See, I agree with your philosophy on quick, but I don't necessarily subscribe to the smoother path, because the harder it gets, the more, the greatest life learnings have always been the hard ones. The thorns teach you more than the roses, because, so you always need to look for, I've always said you need to look for what is outside your comfort zone. And if you kind of say the path is very easy, that means you've not tried that hard. So I kind of subscribe to the philosophy of saying, get out of your comfort zone. When every day becomes super easy, that means you're not learning enough. Go out there, learn new things and try harder, right? So that's something that I constantly believe in. And I think that's something that for me as well, it's been kind of one of the differentiating aspects of getting to the top role. So having said that, there are things that you can do. So what is leadership? Leadership is something that when you say you're a leader, when people are inspired to follow you, it's not because of, I am the boss and therefore you need to hear. So that's a very different viewpoint, and world has moved long away from it. So that means you have to be inspirational, that people actually want to ask, why should I want to follow this, because this is a dream that paves my path, right? And the journey, if it's hard, that just means you try harder. And then you actually say, this was a learning and I'm not going to repeat that mistake ever again. So that's the thing. So I would also say, put your hand up, even if it's outside your comfort zone, because not every job comes from 100% learning. So if that manager job is offered to you and you think I know 60% of what it takes to be a manager or to learn that technology, I've been given that project in AI, but I actually don't know all that much. I know this language, but I don't think I know that. Should I even volunteer for that? Forget volunteering. Say that I want to do it. And when you're in the job, you will learn. Your application comes from the fact that you put your, work all nights and figure out how to kind of learn more and how to kind of justify that role and how to be the biggest contributor. You don't get a seat at the table unless you are super competent. And Sarthak, this is somewhere I think it's maybe just my personal opinion. Sometimes women have to be twice as good as the job to be taken as seriously as compared to men. And that is an unfortunate reality still in the corporate world. So it's more about to be given that seat at the table. You work twice as hard, but I always view that as a challenge, because the minute you come up with your original thoughts, the minute that you show that you're the best person for the job and you're better than most people at the job, people will take you seriously. And not only take you seriously, that automatically propels you to the next level, because people value what you have to say.
Okay. I mean, it's a big debate in itself, that how seriously and how does the corporate world work. We are not going to go into that definitely in terms of the gender biasness and what is there in women. But I would like to point out that, there have been a lot of questions and people have said that, that if you only talk about, let's say, corporate, we know that political leaders, we have women, but if you're talking about the corporate leaders out there, or the women CEOs that exist, we are very proud that we have Indian male CEOs of Google, of Microsoft, of Apple's, and all the other tech, Adobe, all the other companies, are like Satya Nadella, Shantanu Das, and all of them, they're leading. But we do have, if the Indian women, Indra Nui is one of the examples, and then there are women CEOs, if you're not aware of big tech companies, YouTube, IBM, Vimeo, Yahoo, they all had women CEOs. It's not that women have not reached that scale or have not achieved that thing. They are there. So it just shows an example that if you put your heart and soul and mind to it, you can achieve anything. And as Jayji is mentioning, that the road, easy or difficult, is how you make out of it. If you are confident enough of the skill that you possess, if you're confident enough of the decision that you are taking, then the road will always be easy. If you have doubt on your skill set, on your role, if you're going to second guess yourself, then the road automatically becomes difficult. So when you're talking about CEOs of these big companies, which I already said, that Susan Wojcicki was the CEO of YouTube for almost 10 years. People may not be aware of it, but YouTube, which everyone goes to, had a female leader, same as Yahoo, same as IBM, same as multiple other companies. All of them were led, and you can see that these companies have always grown over the years. So the decision taken by women, as in general, has given those companies not only millions of subscribers, viewers, financially more profitable. Everything has grown. So coming back to the point that the skill set that you develop is the only thing that stops you or helps you grow. If you have the skill set, nobody can stop you. Going beyond to the next question, Jayaji, that what should, we have already touched upon that a little bit, that what should women do separately in technology if they have to grow, or if not even separately, but what should they keep on doing to become relevant and to keep up to date with the kind of technologies and things which are happening in the world today? How do women play an important role in totality in today's technology shaped society, or in technology led businesses?
Sure. I think, coming back to continuing on your conversation on giving some names of women CEOs, women have done a lot of things on a global level, but I think you have a lot of immediate examples in, from a local perspective as well. If you look at the tech industry, you look at fintech, there are a lot of women, for example, that are pretty much the CEOs, founder CEOs. It's just not in the corporate world, but also in the entrepreneurial tech world. In the products world, you have a lot of women closer to home. And if you look at every rec tech, you look at healthcare, you have Portia, Meena Ganesh. There are so many entrepreneurs looking at whether it's healthcare to tech to, Reddy Sisters on Apollo. There are a lot of examples very close to home. So I think it's more about, rather than saying these are names I see in movies or people, I think there are a lot of examples at home. And I'm sure women now see a lot of technology leaders in their own organization. And that is a great roadmap to go. The board slots, boards now are adequately, are getting to the direction of pretty much all boards having, thanks to the Kotak Commission, they have women at the top, and they're not family members. They are independent professional directors. So I think it's a long way close to home. Now, coming back to specific skills in technology, I've said this before. Technology is a great leveler because it brings access to your home. So learning comes to your home. And that is something that earlier, this concept of flexi work, the concept of you need to go to the workplace and therefore you need to take a break in your career, that has elevated significantly post-COVID. So most companies either look at a hybrid work model or look at a flexi work model or even work from home kind of a model. So I think some of the challenges that they had, though I would debate on it because the work is double, in some sense, and it's kind of coming home. That's a different aspect of the story. But I think it's brought technology, specifically learning, is brought home. Working is something that has brought home. So there is a lot more flexibility to kind of learn technology. Now, if you look at technology, I think it's all of the technology that you're talking about in terms of either generative AI, transformative AI. They're going to take a lot of the commoditized jobs away. They're going to look at the low end of the value chain going away and the high end of the job staying. So it's more about how do you actually retrain and then get to a point where you're looking at what's my future 5 years from now, and get yourself set on not the past of what was the technology of the past, but talk about fit for future. So the more the learning that you do on what's the roadmap in terms of the future, read a lot, not just about your topic or of relevance to your current work, but start looking at what are the trends shaping the world. AI was talked about quite a bit a few years ago, but that's something that's come of relevance at the workplace of replacing jobs today. Quantum is something that's at kind of like an inceptional stage at this point, but that is going to be something that is very relevant in terms of your computing power, the way the world works, and what you thought of bits and bytes completely is transformed in the way that you look at computing itself. So start learning about those trends and groom yourself for that. And all of this learning is at your fingertips. You don't have to qualify to go to an MIT to get some of the access to the courseware that MITians do. You have it, it's delivered at your home. In front of a computer, you have access to the wealth of knowledge. How you kind of say that learning is something I want to do. I need to get that seat at the, at the board table. How do I propel myself for that? I think that is something that you need to really look for and prepare yourself for.
Thank you. I think you're right that as a leader, we don't need to look outside, but look inside of us that what are we doing, and what can we do? There has been no dearth of leaders, if women leaders from an Indian perspective, Indra Nooyi, as you said, is one of the example. Global brands such as Chanel, Ogilvy, they have Indian CEOs, they are women leading them. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw runs a very big company. Falguni Nair of Nykaa. They're all names which have started even without as entrepreneurs. Falguni Nair was probably heading Kotak's mutual fund business, which is a very big thing in itself. And then she transitioned from a corporate role to creating a brand for herself, Nykaa. So I think as leaders, you'll have to start your journey somewhere. Once you start the journey and once you're going beyond, you will obviously find the solutions that you're looking for. And as you keep crossing one hurdle after the other, as you keep crossing the obstacle, you will keep growing. Well, a lot of a lot of speakers, I mean, a lot of audience, has been asking that it's okay that, leaders is one thing, but women, and we touched upon this a little bit, that there is a glass ceiling. If they have to go beyond that ceiling, if they have to go beyond the societal norm, women have to take care of the home, they have to be good daughters, daughter-in-laws, good wives, good everything, take care of that family first rather than the corporate thing. You yourself are running a big company, you yourself have crossed a lot of hurdle milestone. I know that this question is never the same for everyone. Everyone has their difficult choices to make. But if you have to cross this, if you have to make your family understand, if you have to create a support system around yourself, I need to do this job out there. I'm not available from 9 to 6 p.m. Like a man, if he's doing a corporate job, if he's not available on phone, so am I. The family needs to find alternative means, find that support system. What is your suggestion to all the women listening, and what is your suggestion for the men also? How should they support their, their sisters, their daughters, their wives, their everyone, that how do men start creating more strong women leaders, and how do women create a support system around themselves so that they become, more efficient. They have that support system so that the family is taken care of.
I think success would be achieved when we stop asking these questions. Because I think it's more with saying we expect women to work like they don't have children and raise children as if they don't work. That's not going to happen. We have to be realistic. The minute that women have this superwoman syndrome and they say, I need to be the best daughter-in-law, I need to be the best mom, I need to be the best worker, I need to be the best leader, and I need to change the world. Isn't that putting too much of a burden on one human being? I think we need to raise our boys first to stop expecting these from, the women, whether it's mothers or their wives. So I think that is creating a gender neutral society. And that's just my personal opinion on this, is that we need to guilt trip women when they come to the workforce. I think it's more about putting your priorities where you come first, whether it's women's health. There is a reason women's health is suffering today, because earlier it was a life where men went to work and it's a hunter era and women stayed at home and took care of it. The minute you educated women, you expect them to be an active role player in the workforce. And why, train the men and the boys to kind of do their own chores at home and be as much as you're a mom, you're also a dad. I think both of those hands meet to raise a child. It's just not something that is a woman's responsibility. I mean, you will be the caregiver. The child comes to a mom first, and that's completely fine. But the day you have an important meeting, if the child is unwell, it's okay for the dad to also take that. So take that burden or guilt tripping away. And most important message to women is stop trying to be superwoman, because nobody can, right? And that no man can. There is no Superman and there is no superwoman. So I think there are a question of priorities in a day. When you come to your job, you have a set of deliverables. You need to kind of do that. Once you're very good at your job, you can also demand certain flexibility in the way that you work. And more, it's not just when you need diversity of thoughts, because that is, you can't keep 50% of the population at home and expect a productive economy and grow at the rate that we want to. So it is not a great thing to do for women. It is something that's important for the economy, that women contribute and are active part of the workforce. So whether it's regulatory, whether it's governmental support, whether it's corporate support, all of that have to come to play to make it a pleasurable place for women to work as much as that is for a man. So, in manufacturing industry, women often say they don't have restrooms at a place, which is kind of preventing them from kind of like staying away from a workforce. So things like that, people have started recognizing and working towards. I think in terms of the network support, I have a few things. I'll give an example. When a kid is really good, a girl child has been a topper in a 12th grade exam, no parent is going to, I'm not talking about economically deprived families, but most families are not going to tell the child you can't go to college. But it's more about how you also convince your family to say, this is important to me. This is important to our lives. It's important for the future generations to kind of be inspired and do this. And for this, I enlist your support. I request your support. And I think all of us have come through that. There were biases more, I think, when we entered the workforce, and there is less now, but it's not gone away. I think the social conditioning of trying to do it all is not going to work, because that is something that you actually have to set priorities, make yourself, especially your health, a priority. Because if you're not super fit and kind of like looking at a lot of things, you won't have the energy to kind of do your corporate role, come back and be the mom, write those essays, write those record books, feed the family and go back to work. So it's really important that you also put yourself at some point first in some ways. That is not being selfish. That's being selfless. Because unless you have the energy, you actually cannot take care of a family. It's a long answer, but I would say educate your boys.
I think yes, for all the women out there, what Judge has also said, that you'll have to prioritize, compartmentalize, that you cannot be everyone and everything for all the things. If you're a mother, you're a great mother, but you can't think that I have to be a great CEO simultaneously and be there for everything at that point of time, take care of your children to the school, study with them, teach them, and while I run a big company, so
No, that's not what I said, Sarthak. What I'm
okay,
saying is, what I'm just saying is that you can be a CEO, you can be a great mom, you can raise a good family all at the same time. But it's about on a given day, there are priorities. If you have that board meeting to attend, that becomes a priority. So you ask, you create a support system around you so that even if there's somebody that needs to pick up the child, whether it's the dad, whether it's your mom, whether it's your mother-in-law or the friendly neighbor, you kind of say that, can you do this for me today? Because this board meeting is really important. Guilt tripping yourself while you're in that board meeting, saying, you know what, I should have gone for that event. I didn't pick my child up. He's going to cry. That's the problem that I'm talking about. I think great CEOs are also good moms. It's not that we have not raised a family. I personally have also raised
nobody,
children.
yeah. So
All of that,
it's not that an
yeah,
or or an if. It's not
not an
that
and
you
or.
have to be an
More
if, yeah.
about
It's not.
priorities on a given day.
As you rightly said that, it's not an if and else situation. If great CEO, else great mom. It's never like that. It's always, as you rightly said, that everything is there. And, and as you rightly said, and we told, that there's an equal amount of paternity leave as maternity leave, If companies are coming up with this policy, it's thought of the process that bringing up a child is not a woman's job only, it's a man's job also. It's a father and a mother. It's a parent's thing. It's not only a women thing. But coming to the point what Jayaji is making, that do not guilt trip, it's not, if women have to elevate women themselves, as a thought process, which I am understanding, Jayaji, is that, as a thought process, women have to go beyond their outer shell, that yes, how do I create my support system myself, whereas I have to be good at work also. You're yourself supporting yourself, you creating a support system. I think I remember this, that at one of a point of time in an interview, Indra Nui was asked, that how do you take care of the children while you're running PepsiCo and such a huge brand, and she said, I have a very simple system. If my son wants to watch TV, so he has to call me up. And it's not that Indra Nui picks up the call, she has trained her assistant, that if the son calls, the first question is, have you finished the homework? And if the answer is yes, then yes, you're allowed. If the answer is no, then there's a second question, which the assistant also asked, that, okay, what time, which subjects are the homework relevant to and what subjects are left? If the son gives the answer, if it's yes again, then there is. So that's a support system that great leaders have to create for themselves or have to envision around themselves. And once you have that support system created, any dream or any achievement is possible. So for women, creating that support system begins the most important thing. We have another question, Jayaji, from the audience, that there has been a lot of women stepping down as tech leaders. What do you think is the reason that women are stepping down, and is there less opportunity for them if they're stepping down? I personally don't think so, but please, what would be your opinion on them?
See, a lot of leaders have stepped down. It's just not women leaders. So I think from a data perspective, high profile female tech leaders have stepped down in recent times. Is that because of lack of opportunity? Once you get to that top, that extra limit of what else you do becomes kind of like, it's, this economically, law of marginally diminishing returns kind of a thing, right? Once the whole adrenaline of getting to the top takes a certain degree of extra work for a woman compared to that of a man. Again, going back to the fundamental rules, you still are the primary caregiver. I was talking about support system, not getting you away from primary caregiver, but also kind of saying, don't be the only caregiver. Be somebody that is kind of the primary caregiver, that's okay, but have that support system that helps you get there. I think in terms of women leaders, the race has been doubly as hard, in my opinion, to get to the top. And at a certain point, you say, what else? That what else becomes a question of following other passions that you may have. It's probably return to the community. It's probably about mentorship. It's a lot about pursuit of passions that in your race to get somewhere, you didn't look at. And it's more retrospective to kind of say, what do I do next? Let me focus on the things that I didn't do because I couldn't run with 10 things on hand. I chose these 3 paths. Let me also go to the other paths that I didn't pursue. That's just my reading of it. Because most of them who stepped down would say, I stepped down to do this. I stepped down because I was kind of passionate about other things. They didn't say, I want to step down because I didn't get opportunities.
Okay. As Jayaji rightly said that it's you. I mean, what I'm understanding that at the end of the day, a woman's life, a man's life, I mean, it's in their own hands, Opportunities are there. Jayaji, do you feel that there are any opportunities which are not there for women, or that women have to, how do they find opportunities? How do they create opportunities? Or, if the audience is asking that the opportunities are only meant for men, which I don't believe so, that I believe there are equal opportunities. The hunger has to be there to apply for those opportunities, to run towards those opportunities, to show to the one who is interviewing or the one who's selecting that you are the better candidate than the other person, irrespective of gender. But are there certain things which you believe that how do women, if they have to create opportunities, how do they do that? Can the government help in that scenario? Should they look for something which is purely women specific, or is the world out there for them to be taken?
So, Sarthak, it's not that easy for a woman to get to the top. Let's kind of make that statement very clear. If they were, we have a revolving door syndrome in our corporate world. And that's a global thing. What we mean by revolving door syndrome is simply that when you get to the educational force, now both man and a girl child and a boy child both have almost equal access to education, probably even at the undergrad level. In a campus recruitment, you find almost 50-50 when it comes to recruitment. But somewhere along the way, when people get married, to have children, the women drop out of the workforce. So they drop off to the workforce not because they've not put their hand up. They drop out of the workforce because there is societal norms confining them at home. So if you say there are equal opportunities, I don't get that, because if there were equal opportunities, the corporate world, the other reforms would have enabled them to make it easier for them to stay in the workforce. But data clearly shows they don't come in the same numbers, and there is a pipeline problem of leadership of women at the top. So that is not something you can negate. Is there, the conditional bias or the bias at the workforce has reduced significantly in recent times. When I say it is reduced significantly, I mean, you can't kind of get away with saying there is sensitization of even interviews. Like, for instance, a woman is still asked a lot of interviews in Indian sector. You can't do that in most multinationals. Are asked the question, are you married? To a woman. They never ask a man, are you married? Are you going to take care of your kids? Therefore, can you do this role? How many times do they recruit women for tech sales, for example? Oh, she can't travel. I mean, it's not up to your judgment to say whether she can travel or not travel. So I think if you ask about conditional bias and unconditional bias, the unconditional bias in the workplace remains. Is it a completely equal opportunity kind of a setup? The answer is an absolute no. And it's not a personal opinion. It's data driven. So there is a pipeline syndrome, and the pipeline is that we have failed our women somewhere. If we don't give them either the opportunities to say, be in the workforce, that means society has failed as a whole to kind of give them that, the confidence to kind of say, be in the workforce, I'll take care of it. You don't become a bad mom simply because you're working, because the quality of time you give to a child is far more important than the quantitative time you give to a child. So I think those kind of things, when you kind of like look at, I think as a society, there needs to be reform. As in corporate world, there needs to be reform. There needs to be, I think to an extent, a lot of it is getting elevated, even though it's got teething problems with like hybrid work issue, methodologies, flexi work, doing that. But I think again, I have kind of like a double opinion on that, because that also puts the burden of taking care of home. Oh, you're working from home, you can do this. You can't. When you're working, you're working. When you're taking care, you're taking care. I think it's more about that whole thing. When COVID hit, people were kind of interviewed and said, women said it's more frustrating because now we are expected to do both at 100% capacity. So I think, it is not an easy path. We're still working on it. Is that completely equal opportunity? Absolutely not. But are we making progress? Absolutely yes. But we have miles to go before we sleep.
Okay. Good. I think another few questions from the audience is on the same fact that it's agreed that between that age group, when they drop out from their career that they are ongoing, and as you rightly said, that it's equal to the point when they enter the corporate workforce. It's like a 50-50 scenario when they enter. But when the time comes, when the childbirth time comes, and when they have to take that gap, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months could be different for each woman. That's the time when they fall off. And how does the reintegration of them back into the corporate or the career world, that is where it is more important, that when they're coming back, and how do they come into that same kind of a leadership position or whatever role that they were handling, that is important. But within that time frame, it is now equally important for all the men to understand that it's not only their women's responsibility to bring up the child. As you rightly said, the quantity of time does not matter as much as the quality of time matters while you are raising a child. So similarly, what will be your message? I mean, women have understood a lot of things. What is the message to men to support the women around them? What should the men out here do so that they can have women leaders within their house, within their vicinity, around them?
So I think it's, the message to men is simply that don't look at it as a reservation system. It isn't. It is not something that's going to kind of like undermine you in terms of your opportunities. So it's not a threat to you. The more the women come into the economy, it is more, the economy is going to grow, and therefore the pie is going to get much enlarged, and it's going to be an active contribution to the economy. And second, it's also the message not only to the men, but also women raising men, young children, boys, is that to create a gender neutral society, it starts at home. Make sure that there is no man role or women role at home. It's something that anybody can do. It creates the confidence in girls to go out with confidence. It also creates boys to kind of recognize that taking care of yourself is not it's not something that is a role that provides only by man. So I think, you kind of like create the next generation that's fit for the future by making sure it's truly an unconditional bias is removed. It's a gender neutral society. And that is your greatest legacy you can leave to the world.
Okay, good. I hope all the men heard that the message is that success starts from home. So mindset changing, and if you're looking to support and accept women as leaders, it starts from within itself, that you'll have to support whoever who your wife, your daughter, your daughter-in-laws, your mothers, everyone. Each women have their own journey to take, but we as men can always be enablers and can help them in smoothing their journey. And it's our role, not that we can do that, but we have to do that. I mean, I believe that we have to do that. One of the last questions, Jayaji, from the audience is that hybrid work, as you said, is difficult for them. But do you really think that delay in getting married is something that a woman should do to become a leader?
Well, I can only say what my life experiences has been. I did get married early. I did have a child early. And I don't see that specific thing has in any way affected my ability to kind of, be a leader, or kind of either run as an entrepreneur, set up our own company, do that, or be on the boards of the largest public companies in the world. So I don't think so. I think it's more about not necessarily about what you do with that time, right? So it's not about ignoring one or the other, but it's more about, delaying things is not going to help. but putting yourself as a priority and kind of like, convincing to have that support network helps you. It's a question of either you do your, the biological clock early or late. That means you either retire from the workforce because you have young children when you're in your 40s, or you kind of start early and then kind of like your growth happens later in life. It's all a question of timing. It's not going to alleviate the fact, right? Because you're not going to have a child after 60. You're going to have anyway in your childbearing years. So how does it help? It's just a question of timing.
And I actually agree that, that coming back to that, there is no point in delay. I agree from a medical point of view, since I'm in industry, that if you're just saying that by delaying marriage, you're enlightening, getting along other problems, the biological clock, which is never in your hand, I mean, as mothers, I see that on a daily basis. It's not easy becoming a mother after 40. It becomes actually very difficult. So just why, I mean, Dr. Lab Singh would ask this question, that if you want to delay marriage, will that help in the career? And as Jayaji has said, that it's not that an or if, that if you delay, then you'll get better. Nothing like that. It's about timing. Yes, it's about timing.
Yeah.
So at that end, I think we're out of time. And if there are a lot of other questions, I'm very sure that we can reach out to Jayaji through LinkedIn or through email, and she can help answer all the other questions. It's a pleasure to listen to everyone, and I hope we have given an audience a food for thought, a different mindset, to change your thought process and to help women along their journey in any industry that they're looking for. I would like to thank Jayaji for giving us her valuable time and in enlightening us with a host of things and a host of points, and to see more women leaders emerge after this conversation, that we like to see some of you who would mail us and say that this conversation, the points that we had raised and the things that Jayaji has said had deeply impacted and has helped her move us along their career or their corporate journey. So thank you everyone for listening to us, and thank you Jayaji for being with us and giving us such valuable insights.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.